Good morning, this is David Goodell with Serena Microfocus. Today we'll begin a series on installing SBM Solutions Business Manager. SBM is a fairly easy piece of software to install, and to install it we will need a Windows server with Iis, a database server such as Oracle, SQL Server, or Postgres, and a license server. Historically, SBM uses the older Serena License Manager, but as of SBM 12.0, it now uses the new Microfocus AutoPass license server, which of course means that if you have other Microfocus products, you can use the same license manager for all products, or you can install separate license managers for each one. Today, though, we're going to focus on setting up Iis and getting Windows and Iis ready to install SBM. The current versions of SBM are SBM 12.0 and 11.8. They require Windows Server 2016 and Windows Server 2019. By default, Windows Server 2016 and 2019 does enable HTTP2 when you're using SSL. The first version of SBM that supports this HTTP2 is SBM 11.8. So if you're going with one of the current releases, you will be fine with the HTTP2. For starters, we should review the pre-installation checklist in the SBM documentation at docs.microfocus.com. The quick way I like to get there is by opening up our browser to http help.serena.com. We take a look at this browser here. You'll see that I'm there. You'll see that I have Solutions Business Manager on my home page. So I click on that. I click on my version 11.8 and my ITOM practitioner portal. And then once I get into, and you'll notice there, that's my docs.microfocus.com. Once I get in there, you'll see I have the various newer versions, 11.8 and 12. So I can then select that version and begin to browse that documentation. Okay, so for the pre-installation checklist, let's click on Install, SBM, and then choose SBM Installation and Configuration, Pre-installation, and Pre-installation Checklist. Okay, things to remember about SBM is that an SBM production server should run with at least 16 gigabytes of RAM and at least 2 cores. Likely you'll find that you'll need more than 2 cores running in a production environment. You can review the additional hardware requirements here, and then if you want to look into your database, you can view your database requirements here. Mentions installing the AutoPass license server, and then confirming that the Internet Protocol version IPv4, you'll see that right here, IPv4 is installed even if you only care about IPv6. You can disable IPv4, but it does need to be installed. So let's start by taking a look at our server and seeing exactly how that works. Okay, so here we're on our server. We're going to start by opening up our Windows File Explorer. On this, we're going to right-click on Network, check Properties, and then if you click on your Change Adapter Settings, and then on the adapter, you're going to click Properties. So you'll see right here you have your IPv4. It's checked, so it is enabled. That's neither good nor bad. The important thing is it is installed here. So we're going to go ahead and close that out as we're ready to move on to the next phase, which is getting Iis installed on Windows. Okay, so To get Iis installed, let's do a search for our server manager. We open up our server manager, and then once we get there, we're going to choose local server. We're going to scroll down, and then we're going to go to roles and features. Let's go ahead and go under tasks and choose add roles or features. Okay, we're going to go ahead and click next when we get to that wizard. We're doing role based, and we're going to use that default server. And then here you'll see this server doesn't have Iis installed at all. Your server may have Iis installed. Let me go and back out of that. Your server may have Iis installed, and that is just fine. You can adjust it if you need to, or you could go in and add additional components as necessary. So let's go ahead and add our features. So there's our web. I'm going to hit next, and next, and next. Now, this is our Iis features and the portions that we will install. So, under the common HTTP options, you can add any of these options except for WebDAV, as this feature can cause issues in some instances. Not enabling WebDAV is also good for security. Moving on to health and diagnostics, we're going to accept the HTTP login as the default. You may include other options if you need them, but they're usually not necessary. The tracing option that you see right down here is your failed request tracing option. It allows us to get very detailed with what is happening in Iis should we need to troubleshoot. Micro Focus support rarely needs to review this level of tracing, however. It can become useful when SBM is installed on a server with several other products installed besides SBM. For now, let's go ahead and leave this unchecked. So now if we scroll down, we're going to take a look at our performance. Okay, we're going to use the static content compression by default. If we have plenty of CPU power, we may also want to install the dynamic content compression. Most of SBM's pages are dynamic content. As we scroll down further here, we're going to take a look at security. The options under security are needed only for specialized configuration. Some customers like to use the single sign-on features that Windows Authentication to Iis provide. However, if you are using the recommended single sign-on sessions for SBM authentication, you can use Windows Authentication without installing it in Iis, in which case it means Iis is doing an anonymous access to get into the Iis server. The SBM installation guide does suggest that you will need basic authentication, digest authentication, or Windows authentication. These are needed only for specific cases, like with the SBM C++ API, depending on your configuration. For now, we will not add any options. Now, the meat of what SBM does is going to be under our application development, and so this is the most important. SBM does not use ASP.NET in Iis. We do use it on the server for Composer and Configurator, but not in the web server area. We should not install it unless you know that you need it for a specific customization. So here we're going to just scroll down and check ISAPI extensions and ISAPI filters. Go ahead and click Next and Install. So as this is installing, let's go ahead and take a look at a handy KB document. This KB document walks through the process of what we need to do to validate your Iis setup. You'll notice here it does mention Windows Server Security, and mentions that you need basic authentication, digest, and Windows authentication. And this is a generalized document, and these extra security features may be necessary if you're using the C++ API or that one feature that really needs it. Generally, you're not going to need it, and it is not likely that you will need it. So as you can see here, our installation has succeeded. So we can go ahead and close out our server manager. And now we are ready to get into installing SBM.